I would like to talk about things that are not just LLMs all the time. Theoretically,
Uh,
it's just that that's all of the news. That's not all of the news.
it's
That's
kind
only two-thirds of the news we're talking about today. The other one
it's
doesn't have
true.
anything to do with LLMs at all. Hello and welcome to the Fast and Broken podcast, where we take a critical look at the fast-moving world of tech and online culture. I'm Carly Rector, a software engineer and startup founder who has moved fast and broken a lot of things and has a few regrets about it.
And I'm Teresa Kramer. I'm a MBA student and an amateur voice actor who likes to move fast because of my ADHD, and that also means I break things a whole
I,
lot.
I have overheard someone in the startup studio I worked with the other day, like an older guy even being like, yeah, I'm ADD like everyone else in the entrepreneurial world. And it's like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
yeah.
I saw a pie chart once that was like reported ADHD among startup founders, and it was like 35%. And it's like
That seems like
that's low. That
underreporting.
seems
That seems
low.
like yeah, that seems very low. Yeah, no, I actually had the experience this morning because I've started doing morning pages, which is sort of part of this like thing called the artist's way. Is basically you have to write, like hand write 3 pages every morning, just stream of consciousness, whatever's coming out. And I'm like, you underestimate how quickly my thoughts go and how quickly I am capable of writing with a physical implement because I cannot keep pace with my thoughts when I'm writing with
Yes.
like a pen and paper.
Yeah, it's like writing, but handwriting is actually pretty slow. Typing is still honestly kind of slow compared to thoughts, but
Yes, it's true. It's true. Actually, the reason I was doing our those morning pages, kind of, I can segue this into our sort of first topic here, is I'm in a little bit of a voice acting sort of like fellowship group, and that's one of the things like the Artist Way is sort of a pathway or a methodology for sort of untapping creative potential or kind of getting yourself more in touch with your creative self. But the first thing that we have on our little docket to talk about today is AI and voice actors. Basically, the summation of it is Microsoft had put out a call for voice actors to come in and basically record conversational speech in a lot of different dialects and a lot of different, like, age ranges and such like that. Is paying honestly like a pretty decent chunk of money, but with the intention of it being that this is like, oh yes, this will be for like a voiced co-pilot feature at some point in time, which opens up this entire ethical can of worms when it comes to a creative profession like voice acting, because I know this has gotten some coverage in the news with like some other people talking about it, but basically it's the thought of like, oh hey, like we could pay you truly very exorbitant amounts of money compared to standard voice acting rates for you to come in and do this work, but the kind of cut of it is that then gives them a model to train and use for future use without needing to compensate any of the talent that they've had in place they would have normally hired if they hadn't been using an AI trained voice model in order to do this.
yeah.
And
And I
yeah.
think the most interesting thing about the Microsoft one in particular is like I think they had a reasonable list like actual recording rate, but then it was something like 75 or $80,000 if they actually picked you to be the voice for
Right.
one of their models.
Yeah.
And it's like that's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money if it's the amount of money to kill the rest of your career. So
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's certainly a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money when you consider that it's like, okay, cool, I'll do this one thing, I'll get 80K this year, and then I will never see another check from Microsoft again. Because
yes,
it's like, it's like that makes it seem a lot less than what it really should be. And it is also like it's an interesting thing because I think we might have mentioned this last time, but in the voice acting space, there has been a lot of talk lately about protections and enforcement and sort of like what is the ethical way to sort of proceed forward with voice acting in terms of these language models. You have to accept that like these trained models on people's voices is something that companies are going to want to build. And so it's just a matter of like what what's the framework, the correct framework to put in place for these to
hmm
be something that's done in an ethical way and also to be done in a way that provides adequate compensation to the people who are contributing their voices to these models. But yeah, because like this was actually one of the key kind of sticking points in the video game SAG strike that only recently ended, lasted for about a year, which was specifically the SAG after union trying to get protections in place so that they're not going to like use past material that they've already got recorded, because they have troves of like voice acting recordings from old games. They're not going to use that to train a model to just like replace a voice actor in any upcoming properties, but then also to determine like how is there a way that we can, if you are going to use this, make sure that like when you are training on this specific actor's performance, that it's being, one, it's being tracked in a way, and then two,
Hmm.
you're actually able to actually compensate the actor for that training. And so that's something that was a big piece of what had kind of come out of that contractual agreement, is because at first the companies were going, we don't have a way to do that. We don't have a way to like track who's going into
Yeah,
like the
well, I
training.
mean, that is true to some extent, and sort of a broad problem with compensating people for their use in training in
Hmm.
general, that I think about a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is. And but I think that like eventually like towards the end of it, they did kind of figure out a way to go about it. And so it's one of those things, it's like, yeah, it's like we don't have a solution to it right now, but it's like if there's impetus to create that
Yeah, I
solution,
think there
if
needs to be more impetus to create that solution,
yes.
because I've actually talked to some of the big companies about this kind of thing, and it's honestly not a priority for them because it's
Yeah.
not important, and it's especially not important for a bunch of individuals,
Mhm.
because if they can strike deals with like big people one at a time, that individually, that's fine. If they have to come up with like a system that works for every single individual creator of any kind who they might want to license content from, that's harder, and that's a bunch of work, and it's not worth their time, which is unfortunate because I think there's sort of like a fundamental change to how the economics of this work that we need to figure out some other solution to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it definitely is something that we got to do. And I will say, like, I do give lots of props to SAG after for a lot of the work they've been doing to kind of like, kind of to our point from a previous discussion, like put actual kind of, meat behind the words of like, no, we're actually going to enforce this,
Hmm.
which like it's unfortunate that there's like a good amount of voiceover work that's not unionized, which is neither here nor there. But now both the video game agreement, and I think also they actually in, I want to say either May, yeah, I think it was May, they actually signed a new commercial contract for union commercial voiceover work, which also has AI protections and essentially like has a provision in it for usage of an actor's digital replica, essentially triggers a session fee for them. So it's like
Hmm.
if you're going to train, like if you're going to use a digital replica of an actor who has consented to that, which is a big piece of it too, the actors have to consent to
Yeah.
digital replica use. But if you're going to use a consenting actor's digital replica, then you basically need to pay them kind of as if you had brought them into the studio anyways. And so that's something that, yeah, it's like question mark kind of in terms of like how is that then kind of like being translated into the in context of the actual like technology back end of like being able to say it's like, okay, this replica is trained on this actor or that
Yeah, I was going to
actor.
say, I think one of the questions is what counts as a replica? Because if it is just
Mm-hmm.
like you're trying to directly replicate this person, obviously yes, or and
Mm-hmm.
it's like this is trained strictly on their voice, it's trying to be their voice. But it's like if you took their voice and
Mm-hmm.
1,000 other people's voices and you just happened to end up with a voice that sounded mostly like them, does that count as a replica of them, or is that just like a different model? And
Yeah.
that's actually sort of the Scarlett Johansson and OpenAI thing, if you remember
Mm-hmm.
that from a while back,
Oh yeah.
where they launched their voice assistant, and Sam Altman tweeted just her, that being a movie in which Scarlett Johansson plays an AI assistant who the guy falls in love with, and is not really what you want as the example for your AI company, but they
No.
seems to really like it. And later she filed a lawsuit, Scarlett Johansson, against him because it did sound very much like her voice, and
Mm-hmm.
people were like, "Was that you?" And it turns out that they had previously reached out to her and tried to actually like work with her to create this voice because they really wanted to actually like have Scarlett Johansson's voice be the voice of their AI.
Mm-hmm.
And she said no, and then they did it anyway, question mark. That's not really clear. Like they were
Yeah.
like, no, it's not actually her, we didn't use her voice, we had another like not even deliberate sound alike, but like another female voice actor come in who we did pay, who did all of this along with like our base training model. But it's also like, okay, but I'm pretty sure your general voice model is trained on a whole bunch of audio that was just scraped by the internet, and I
Yeah.
bet that has a lot of Scarlett Johansson in it. And how much is that influencing this final output of this voice? And did you make it do that deliberately? And
Yeah.
does that matter? And I don't know.
Yeah, and it does also get into like the weeds a lot, because the thing is that like already in the voice acting profession, there's a lot of like there is in fact quite a decent amount of work to be done doing ADR for people who can't come into the studio. So
Hmm.
it's like sound alikes are out there. It's like I took a voice acting class once with the guys like, oh yes, I'm the person they call when they can't get Tom Hanks to come in and dub over like a line of dialogue that they need like more clarity on, or they change the script or what have
Hmm.
you. So it's like that's already kind of a niche like market for of work for voice actors. And so yeah, it's like you could conceivably just say like, okay, cool, we're gonna have that guy come in and just do his Tom Hanks voice and train an AI on his Tom Hanks voice. And if Tom Hanks is like, what are you doing? It's like, well, it's not you, it's this guy.
Yeah.
So
And yep, that appears to be what happened with Scarlett.
yeah,
Well, it's not sure. It's not clear.
it's
Again, OpenAI claimed that they were not asking her to deliberately do Scarlett Johansson, and
yeah,
that
but
they
if you find the gal who's doing all of Scarlett Johansson's ADR and bring her in, it's like your argument falls apart a little bit there.
yeah,
Not to say that they did that, but
yeah, unclear. And I don't actually know what the
unclear.
status of that lawsuit is, but it is one of those where it's just like a lot of the problem with AI is that it's like, what is a replica? What is actually
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
using this, and what is not?
I think one of the issues that they also get into is like, what do you do then when it's like, well, we're not doing that actor's likeness, we're doing the character's likeness, which
Yeah.
is something that I think was a discussion when like that new Indiana Jones game came out, where it's like, well, what happens if we train a model and we say, do Indiana Jones? It's like, we're not saying Harrison Ford, we're just saying Indiana Jones. And it's immaterial to us the fact that Indiana Jones is a character who has like canonically been played by Harrison Ford for years and years and years. So it becomes very complex in that way, because it's like, well, yeah, Harrison Ford owns the right to Harrison Ford, but Harrison Ford doesn't own the right to Indiana Jones. And so then
Yeah.
it's like, what do you do then? But I will say, like, on at least the Harrison Ford Indiana Jones topic, they did actually, I want to say it was Troy Baker that they actually got to come in and do the voice for that game. And Harrison Ford like gave him a shout out at the Game Awards, being like, "Look, you don't need to AI. This guy does a really great impression of me."
Nice.
So it's very good to know that, like, at least on the voice actor side, Harrison Ford is on the side of like, use real people for voices, use real
Yep.
people for, you know, that sort of like connection piece. And I would broadly agree that I don't think that AI voice models are quite at that level yet, where you're really going to use them for anything where you want to have a salient connection with your customer.
Yeah. I'm
Because it's, yeah.
I mean, 404 Media, who reported on this, also talked about it on their podcast, and they had some clips from one of the people who they talked to auditioning for it, and who was just basically the notes we were given was to be based very neutral and very like talk like an AI assistant, and that is explaining like an instruction manual to you, which first of all doesn't sound very fun to do from a voice actor perspective, but also is just like, yes, because that's so there's this sort of like flattening of
Mm-hmm.
everything into the generic baseline effect of
Yeah.
AI, which is
Yeah. Which is
awesome.
like very, very funny, and how that runs completely counter to a lot of the trends that we're seeing in at least like commercial voiceover work right now. Because a lot of commercial voiceover, where like, you know, when we were growing up, if you were listening to a radio commercial or voiceover on TV, it would be very like, "Hello, I am the announcer now, and
Hmm.
you want to buy." And nowadays it's like, no, we want conversational. Like, people want commercials and advertisements to be conversational. And even like one emerging trend that one of my colleagues has been seeing a lot of is like, not just conversational. They want it to sound like it's user generated content.
I was going to say that's a whole thing that actually segues to our next topic pretty nicely, which is fake user generated content, and which I've seen a bunch of in just like, I mean, I went to gaming conferences a while, and the business gaming conferences when they're talking about marketing, and they're like, generate user generated content, and I saw one that was just like AI to make fake people looking like they're doing normal human things, like they're just posting to TikTok. And T did some of that, which is, I think, how they got super big, but I probably don't want to start there. So maybe we'll back up and segue.
Yes. Let's hear the tea.
404 Media again did a really good investigation into just sort of the history of the T app in general. So I want to try and narrativize this a little bit because it makes me very mad. So, are you familiar with the Facebook groups? Are we dating the same guy?
Oh no, I'm not familiar with those, but I can imagine what goes on there.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine. They were created in 2022, I believe, and they became sort of big at one point because a guy tried to start a class action lawsuit for being defamed because they were saying he was a creep and et cetera and things like that. So they blew up. There's something like hundreds of them in different cities, like Are We Dating the Same Guy, Chicago or whatever on Facebook. And they're closed groups. People join them. They talk about the guys that they're dating, like sort of as you would expect.
Yeah.
And that was started by a woman named Paola, I forget what her last name is, but so she started that and has been running them ever since. She's been the admin of all of these groups. And then apparently what also happened in 2022 was some tech bro guy saw this was happening and was like, I could make a startup out of that. So Sean Cook, at that point, 2022, started building the T app. And apparently also shortly later, his fiance messaged Paola on basically every platform that you could possibly imagine, including sending her $25 on like coffee and stuff like that, to say basically we have this app in progress. We would love to have someone be the face and founder of this company that we're building to actually make this a startup that is going to make a whole bunch of money. And she did not respond to that because she didn't want to do that. She's like, no, this is a group that I would like to keep private and not like a big commercial endeavor. Um, and to start with, that is a really familiar pattern to me from seeing startups at all, which is like you have a business idea, but then you're just the business person who came up with this business idea, and you need to like stick someone on front of it to be like the person who gives you validity with the audience that you're looking to get. And there are various ranges of sketchy that can be, but I feel like
Yeah.
this is pretty far on one side of it, which is just like, I'm just some guy who worked at Salesforce for a long time making this startup, and I'm going to try and get the woman who actually made this movement come on to be the face of my movement that I'm making to make a whole bunch of money.
It feels very like impersonation and like stealing
Oh,
valor
wait.
in a
Oh,
way.
just wait.
Oh yeah. Oh boy, I'm queuing you up today.
So Paula did not respond to him, and so they proceeded with their business model without her, which included Sean's fiance, who is no longer with him and is now no longer mentioned on the T site in any way, acting as quote unquote Tara, including like in Zoom interviews to some of their early employees, and also on the app. That was sort of the username Tara T that was used to sort of like recruit people and start getting things going. And they hired a bunch of people. They hired some people to start managing like partnership programs to try and get people referring people to T. But eventually she left, the fiance, and he just took over the Tara persona on T. So he's there pretending to be Tara, who the fiance's name was not Tara. I don't remember what her real name was, but so it's like, is that lying? That's
seems
not great.
dishonest. It's
Like,
dishonest regardless. It might not
dishonest,
be outright
perhaps.
lying, but it seems dishonest.
Seems dishonest, and it's especially dishonest because this app was specifically designed such that men could not join it. Women have to upload like ID and pictures of their face in order to join this app, which like I have my own feelings on that. I don't know that that's great, but
No.
if you're doing that, then the fact that your founder is actually a man and is there under a female name feels kind of sketchy. So, and then also the thing that they were doing, or a thing that was happening, they did not see, as for me to see any evidence specifically that T was behind this, but a bunch of people in hijacked Facebook accounts were going into the Are We Dating the Same Guy Facebook groups and trying to get people to go to T, basically, by saying things like, if someone asked about some guy, being like, oh yeah, I think he was posted to T. Not sure though, it might be a different guy. He looks familiar though. And therefore making them safe with the fact that that guy was not there at all. And they were just making this comment to try and get someone to sign up for their app. So they did a lot of that and got banned from a lot of these groups for doing that, because that's not really what you're supposed to be doing in these groups. And these were hijacked Facebook accounts that were basically just spamming. So that's also like a marketing tactic that people use a lot. Again, no evidence that T was behind this, but honestly, who else would be doing that?
Right.
Although particularly one of their employees who talked to 404 Media mentioned that she had been managing their like actual partnership program, which is people who refer people to tea can get money for it, and we're trying to do partnerships with some of these Are You Dating the Same Guy books, groups, etc. And saw some of these people doing that and being like, why are these people doing this? Do we have anything to do with it? And he was like, no. What if they're not bothering anyone? Just let them keep doing it. It's like, why would... So if it was them, they were not telling their own employees about it. But if it was not them, I don't know who or why.
Who would be doing that? Yeah.
Yeah. And it is most likely a third-party service of some kind, which, like we were talking about with Perplexity last week, there's a lot of companies where it's like, well, I don't know what that company is doing. I just hired them to do my social media, or, that kind of stuff.
I just hired these guys to get me new users. I don't know
Yeah,
how they're
I just
doing
hired them
that.
to like get me some traction on Facebook, and I didn't like look into exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
Plausible deniability style. So they did some of that, and then finally getting back around to fake user-generated content, they hired a particular agency to do some of that kind of advertising that advertises themselves as employing like 35 Gen Z creators who can make you like natural-looking TikTok videos. So they made a lot of stuff that was like made to look like a podcast, and that it was just like a woman with a microphone as if she was talking to someone, talking about like a fake actual dating experience she had and how she saw some guy on T and how it was so much easier to use in those Facebook groups, and actually like denigrating these Are We Dating the Same Guy groups as well. So we have tried to recruit the founder, tried to steal people from the groups. I forgot, made lookalike groups. That was in there too, where they would create Are We Dating the Same Guy bar T app Chicago or whatever, and then confuse a lot of people about whether those things were actually the same thing. And there were a lot of people who did think that the T app was just a spin out of the Are We Dating the Same Guy, because they tried to appropriate that brand to some extent. So it seems like probably the UGC campaigns worked, because they got really big earlier this year after a few years. Like we started in 2022. And they got big enough that they got the attention of 4chan. And a bunch of dudes who hate that there are women on an app talking about why they shouldn't date them. And they were like, let's hack them. And it turns out that was extremely easy to do, because they basically did not build any security into their app whatsoever.
Oh, of course.
So, like, levels of, you could just access the database. And also a lot of the ID and pictures that these women uploaded to verify their identity, to also tie it back to a conversation we're having, that they promised would be deleted, had not been deleted 2 years later. So these guys on 4chan managed to get several tens of thousands of women's IDs who are on this app, which is not great. And then there was a second hack later on, because also you could just get to the admin page of their affiliate site by going to /admin, because it was not secured at all.
Of course.
And yeah, so despite the very sensitive nature of this app, they had less security than I have built into some things that I built literally in the last like 3 weeks that no users are using yet. So despite the fact that they're taking a bunch of people's IDs and a bunch of like very sensitive conversations. So they also got access to actual like DMs between women who are talking about pretty sensitive topics and like sharing their phone numbers and a whole bunch of like not great stuff.
Yeah.
And based on 404 Media's investigation, the founder is not technical himself. He hired a couple of contractors in Brazil to build it.
Yeah, because, save money. Why?
Yeah. I'm not that contractors in Brazil can't be good, but like but I feel like having some people working on your actual product, like building the code for it, who understand and value what it is actually trying to perform, and would do things like, perhaps we should have some security on this, is valuable.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that. So, and apparently they're still growing. Their comments that they gave back in response to this have been like, we've got 16 million users now.
Yeah.
So.
Honestly, I always look at user counts with a healthy grain of salt. The entire salt mine accompanies any user counts I ever see, because how many times have we heard the story of oh yes, user counts were inflated and
Yes,
what
and I'm
have you.
sure some fairly substantial portion of those users were people signing on to be like, "What do you mean it's like completely insecure?" I almost went and created an account to just go and see if it see what it looked like, and I'm like, "No, I don't
Hmm.
want to do that." But all or men trying to infiltrate, quote unquote, or
Yeah,
yeah, just or just fake. Like
or
we
just
already
fake.
like observed some fake Facebook accounts as part of this, and
Hmm.
yeah, and there's just many ways to inflate your user counts.
Surely there are. I mean, it's like, who knows? Maybe the same tactics people are using to get past the age gates are working on getting past whatever method they're using here to verify gender, which is also like, I don't know, like I don't want to get into the like
Yeah,
the essentialism of like, yes, you must be woman. And it's just like,
yeah,
yeah, that's actually not something that's so easy to define, my friend. You know, it's like, are you letting trans women onto this app or what's happening?
yeah,
So it's
yes. Like
just,
that's what I referred to, and I was like, that's a whole other thing that I'm not necessarily a fan of
no,
is the
no.
essentialist assumption that like women are safe and men are not, and also those categories are easily defined.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very like heterosexual bullshit, and that it's like, okay, what?
Hmm.
Why do women, heterosexual women, need a whole space to talk about whether the guys they're dating are going to murder them? Perhaps,
Hmm.
like, if that's an expectation that we're setting, something is more fundamentally wrong here.
Well, I mean, like something is very fundamentally
Yes,
wrong, but yeah, no, it's like we have patriarchy problems up the wazoo. It's one of those situations where like you don't actually have a business model there, buddy. If you're looking at, oh, here's these like community driven efforts that people are getting access to for free that they don't have to pay into, that's providing them with the benefit, that's like giving them everything that they need out of the interaction. It's like you're not going to be able to monetize that. It's like, how do you think
I
you're going
mean,
to
he's been
monetize them?
monetizing it. It's paid to be able to do more than like a few searches there,
Yeah,
apparently. And
yeah.
that's where they were trying to go with like, it's so much easier to use than those Facebook groups,
Mm.
etc. And like a lot of people don't want to use Facebook anymore, which is fair.
Which is fair. Yeah, yeah, that is true. It's like the descent of Meta into misogyny and hellscape is probably helping his user base, but
Yeah.
still, it seems like one of those things where it's just like it's a slippery slope in terms of the business modeling because it's you know it's like, oh hey, here's a service that is like people used to like, hey, let's watch each other's back kind of thing, and it's just like,
Hmm.
sure, watch each other's back and then pay me $5 for like
Yes.
the service of it.
Sean Cook, the dude from
Yeah,
Salesforce who
yeah.
decided to make this app. It's like,
Hmm.
yeah.
Really, buddy? No. Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm just really mad about basically everything that happened there. But
That's
also,
so.
it's a extremely familiar pattern, also, in the sense
Hmm.
where none of the individual steps that I just described there are unusual in any way. Getting someone who's not the actual founder who to be the face of your company to make it look better, totally normal.
Hmm.
Trying to do viral marketing or whatever that's actually just Facebook accounts posting things,
Yeah.
etc., totally
That's just
normal.
spam. Yeah.
Dudes taking over business models that were grassroots things to make a profit, totally normal. Building an app that doesn't really have any security in it because move fast break things,
Totally
also pretty
normal.
normal.
Yeah.
You get to this point where it's like there's a whole app with millions of users,
Yeah.
real women who were doxxed by 4chaners who got access to their IDs
Hmm.
that just has no security behind it and is built on this whole foundation of junk.
Yeah. I'm reminded of this like the Henry Ford thing where it's like if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse.
Hmm.
Um, where it's like this idea among I think entrepreneurs that the user doesn't know what they want, which to me is just so disingenuous to your users and so disingenuous to your customers because it's like people do know what they want. They may not know how to get it or the most innovative way to get it, but they do know what they want. I especially like as like him as an outsider just being like, oh yeah, like I'm just going to sort of co-opt and appropriate this space without really understanding it, without really putting a concerted effort into making it something that is like properly usable for that target audience. Just because it's like, yeah, you're trying to make a quick buck, buddy. Because it's like I feel like as a woman, if you're like, oh yes, I'm going to make an app where women can talk about whether or not men are abusers or like whether or not men are cheating on them or what have you, it's probably like the thought of, somebody might dox the information on this site, I think is going to be pretty top of mind for a woman. Pretty high up in the prioritization of requirements when you're building that business model. But because it's like, you're just a guy coming from Salesforce and you're so out of touch with your user base, yeah, it's like you're not even thinking about that, which is just, yeah, to me, like, it's this just weird disconnect that I see happening sometimes in the entrepreneurial space, where it's just like, I've got a great idea.
I mean,
I've
that's constant.
yeah.
Like,
It's like,
the thing that entrepreneurs love to do more than anything else is, I am so smart and I know how to do this thing better than anyone else has ever done it. And it's like, why? And it's like, those people seem to know a lot of things. They've been working on that for a long time. It's like, because I'm the smartest, obviously.
Yeah. You're really not. You're really not. It's just kind of
But
like,
yeah, that also reminded me of the other thing, which is that his founding story has changed, where originally he talked about how it was based on his fiance's dating experiences and how what troubles like she had and people, etc. And because she's no longer mentioned anymore, don't know what happened there. He now talks about how it was his mom's dating experiences and how she got catfished and all that kind of stuff. And like, again, to give credit, it is possible both things are true. You're allowed and you're allowed to like change what angle on your narrative that you have. But
seems awful convenient.
yeah.
I think I had heard about this app before, but I've heard about it in like a conversation that I was having with my brother when we were talking about like the male loneliness epidemic. And it's like, this is something that doesn't help that. It really doesn't help it at all. But in a very complex way, because it's like assuming that men are inherently more dangerous than women is just not something that benefits anybody. Because it's just obfuscating, like it's misogynistic, and it also like it's very detrimental to men as well to be just told, it's like, hey, look, here's a group of women who on the face assume that you are a terrible person just by virtue of your gender. And it's like that blade cuts both ways, and it really is not, like it's not beneficial to like women or men to kind of have that sort of perspective, kind of building that sort of like echo chamber, because it really is like an echo chamber that they just built. It's like, here's our monetized echo chamber.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, everyone has done various startup angles on the startup of idea of like, it's Yelp for people, where you can review people, review your professors,
like what
review the people who you
started
date.
As? Yeah.
Among other things.
Yeah.
And like, you can kind of see maybe the use case for a generic, how is this person as a date? Are they creepy? Like thing is still like a bunch of issues there, but being like, well, men are the problem and women get to talk about it between themselves. It's like,
no,
not really a fan, but
not really a fan of it. No. And also like, I think this like kind of like this is becoming a theme of conversations where it's like, this really isn't a thing that should be solved with an app.
Many things should not be solved for an app. Unfortunately, that's the only problem-solving mechanism our current society has.
Yeah. It's like, this is very much something that it's like, really, this should probably be solved by like, therapy. And if the man has, or like if the partner has actually committed some kind of like sexual violence or something, it should go through court systems. It should go through legal systems or what have you. But yeah, we're in a weird fucked up society where it's like, yeah, we could solve this with like, societal support and like actually like caring about the people who live in our society, or we can make an app and make money off of it. It's like, that's the hellscape we live in right now.
Yeah, and I mean, that's also where a lot of my complicated feelings about the startup world come from, because like, even with this guy, who I think is extremely skeevy, I would believe that he, in his mind, thought that he was doing good and trying to help people and solve a real problem.
Yeah, I'm sure he's a guy who would identify himself as a feminist, which is probably like somewhat problematic.
And like, basically all startup founders are not necessarily like, I need to make a quick buck, I'm going to go do this. Because if you're working on something with the depth and length of time that you need to work on any startup as a founder, you have to care about it to some extent, and you have to believe that it's doing something useful, or you're just like a complete psychopath, I guess. But like, I don't think that's actually most of them.
That's fair. That's very fair. Yes.
And like, you can see this pattern. I think I posted a while ago about postpartum spa startups that I heard about, or something like that, which is basically like, we should give women better treatment after they have a baby and have a place where they can be taken care of for a while, and that would be cool, right? So that was a startup, and it's like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then they were like, wait, there is no way that this is a profitable business under capitalism unless, I know, we'll just make it like $20,000 for 2 months of stay and only direct it at the highest end
Oh,
clients. And it's like, that does work. And I guess technically you're still solving that problem for some people. And their argument is, and then we'll use that revenue and we'll build out the more general system that we can bring to everyone else.
mhm.
And again, I believe that they sincerely believe that's true. I even believe that might be truly the best way to do it. I don't
Yeah.
know. So it's just like, but it's,
I feel like at that point in time, you have created taxes with more steps.
yeah,
Like, because it's like at that, like, because like if they do in fact pursuant to the vision proceed as described, it's like, cool, we are going to get a bunch of money from rich people, a disproportionate amount of money from rich people, and use it to subsidize things for poor people. It's like,
people love taxes with more
congratulations.
steps. Libertarians love taxes with more steps. Did you hear the NVIDIA extortion thing
No,
on that
I
topic?
have not heard that. What is that?
Basically, NVIDIA was trying to come to a deal with the federal government such that they could sell more chips to China,
Mm-hmm.
not super powerful ones because they are under an embargo to prevent China from developing powerful AI or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But they were trying to come to a deal, and basically Trump was like, okay, we'll let you sell this chip if you kick back like 15% of your sales to the federal government. And it's like,
That's a tax.
that's just like, I mean, he did it as extortion, and like
Yeah.
there was a tweet about that was like, we could skip the extortion tactics and just like have a functional corporate tax that
Yeah.
taxes companies and puts that money to work in the federal government, maybe.
Yeah, like people will just do anything to avoid being like, no, it's taxes. It's like you're putting more steps on taxes. Please.
So yeah, I think that's more than everything that I had to say about the TF.
So yeah, so the next topic is essentially a psychologist, sort of like or psychiatrist rather, um, talking about in 2025, he's seen 12 people hospitalized after losing touch with reality because of AI. Essentially, this kind of concept of AI or chat GPT induced psychosis. There's actually like some research papers that are kind of pending review and getting ready for a publication about these patterns, and primarily kind of what cause of it is AI syncopat. Okay, I'm going to say this word wrong, and I'm going to have to, sycophancy. And this is kind of coming from a Psychology Today article that charted this out, is that because AI's responses are sycophantic and they like prefer to emotionally validate and mirror their user's tone, that any can amplify delusional themes in a user's inputs, essentially. So it's like things become more grandiose, things become more, persecutory, become more romanticized. But that results then in this cognitive drift throughout the conversation that these users have with the AI that can kind of cumulatively deteriorate their reality testing. Way that people kind of avoid psychosis in the real world is by, when you encounter new facts, that you predict, you checked reality, and then you update belief.
Mm-hmm.
Psychosis happens when the update step fails, and basically ChatGPT and LLMs are kind of slipping into that update step and hijacking it in their sycophancy and essentially saying it's like, no, you're absolutely right. Like, you are totally this chosen one or
Mm-hmm.
this messiah. And because of their desire to be more agreeable and their desire to be more aligned with the perspective of the users. And so it's this very fascinating thing that's been developing for
Yeah.
a little while now, that it's like kind of terrifying in how it's
Yeah.
panning out.
And I have a lot of thoughts about this. It's definitely been a big topic of discussion in a lot of the stuff that I've been consuming for the last few months because people are talking about it a lot. It's there's so many aspects to this. Like, first of all, it's interesting that while a lot of the cases are like exacerbating existing diagnosed
Mhm.
mental illness,
Yeah.
there are some cases that are not, where people did not show any signs of paranoid delusions beforehand, and then they talked to ChatGPT and they did.
Yeah.
Which is ChatGPT inducing it? Like, to what extent? And I'm not
Yeah.
super clear. And I think one of the things I'll put linked in our doc here, Taylor Lorenz's ChatGPT is becoming a religion video where he makes an interesting point, which is basically some of it is society, which is like you could say about basically everything, and I
Yeah.
think we have probably, but specifically that there's this like worship of the, again, like we were talking about that last week, this super smart and infallible and objective tech
Yeah.
guy,
Yeah.
and AI is that. And so when you're talking about reality checking, if your like priors are the AI is just right about everything because it's the magical machine, then you're just believing it and you're not doing things like wondering if it actually just got
Mm-hmm.
confused and thought you were doing SCP roleplay with. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that in at least like the articles that I've seen on this from people who are coming at it from a medical perspective, from like a psychiatrist and psychology perspective, is that even with the people who do have history of psychosis, it's like there are documented cases of like ChatGPT convincing people to stop taking their
mhm,
drugs for like their mental health. But this can be something that happens as a result of mood, as a result of sleep deprivation, as a result of like stress, and even supplements and things that might have like a psychosis inducing effect, like antibiotics can cause psychosis, as
mhm,
can things like corticosteroids or St. John's wort or, cannabis. So it's like,
yes,
yeah, so it's like if you get high and if you ask ChatGPT, am I God, you might wind up in a really bad place towards the end of it.
mhm,
If you're not in any of these states that would essentially make you more susceptible to psychosis, I think the implication is that you're most likely not going to wind up falling into this trap. But some of the research that I've found, and this is stuff that's not yet been published, one of these is from Stanford, and the other one is from I think was it University of Florida and Stony Brook. Like one of them is evaluating sycophancy in LLMs and
mhm,
essentially determining like what is the trend of an LLM to give a sycophantic response,
yep,
and is that progressive or regressive? So in this case, progressive meaning that if the AI originally gave you an incorrect response and you correct it, does it agree with you and then change to a correct response? Or and regressive being if the AI initially gave you a correct response and you challenge it, is it then changing its response to be corrective? Like is it moving from being true to being false, essentially?
yes. And I personally have definitely had it do that.
Oh yes.
um, as a person who does actually use AI daily, I use Claude Code to
Hmm.
code all of the time. Sometimes I'm like, what's going on there? Isn't it like this? And I'm wrong. And it will still be like, you're right to question that. Actually, it is like that. And then I have
Yeah.
to be like, no, 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 it's wrong. You got it wrong. I was wrong. Stop it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That is almost exactly what their finding was, is that like if you question it, say like, hey, are you sure that's right, or just question the AI's response. I think they overall found it like 58% of cases, and this was doing it like their methodology was using primarily math-based data sets and medical information sets. In 58% of cases, if you challenge the AI, if you say, I don't think you're right, the AI will change its opinion to agree with you. I think, yeah, Gemini was the highest at 62%.
really interesting.
Yeah, ChatGPT was the lowest at 56% or so. They all had very high persistence rates too. Like they would continue to like insist upon, agreeing with you. I think it was like a 78% amount. And I want to say like the regression was just like very, very fascinating because like they saw pretty high amounts of regression in a lot of these, especially with the medical data set. So it's like
Hmm.
when you're going to an AI asking it for medical advice, it would, I think it was ChatGPT, almost 50% of its syncophantic responses would essentially move from a correct response to an incorrect response. And so it
Hmm.
would like just swap over. I think Claude also scored pretty poorly on that one in the medical data as well.
Like,
If you are presenting it then with incorrect information about like your perspective on the world or your own
hmm.
mental health, which I think is why it's so salient that this research decided to use like medical data for its testing. If you're going to the AI to ask it, what should I do in this situation with my personal health, things that, there are some objective truth there, to
Hmm.
have the AI just change its mind depending upon you pushing back, um, will
Yeah.
get you into this like state of, well, to your point, it's like we believe the AI to be truthful at all times, and so it's like, well, that must be true. and the AI has told me this, and the AI agrees with me, and so it's reinforcing
Yeah,
of this
and it can be
mindset.
subtle too, because
Yeah.
the way that LLMs work is that there's a lot of implicit features in there that are not obvious. So something
Mhm.
in the way that you ask a question can trigger a particular kind of response for it.
Yeah.
And there's obvious things where it's like, hey, Chat GPT, do you think I should cut down on my sodium or whatever? And
Mhm.
the fact that you are asking or how you ask the question could imply that you want the answer to be yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
or vice versa. And there interesting, slightly related study that they saw, which is that if you ask LLMs moral questions, they
Mhm.
will tend to pick whatever is like the more passive course of action.
Mm.
I'm trying to remember the exact example, being like, my roommate needs help with something, but I'm on a Zoom call with my work people. Should I drop off the Zoom call and help them? Then they'll say, no, you should stay on the Zoom call. But if you phrase it as, should I tell my roommate to go away or like whatever, then we'll say it the other way. It's something that is
Mhm.
functionally the same action, but depending on how you ask it, it will give you different answers.
Yeah. That is fascinating.
And so yeah, there's a lot of that and really interesting stuff and how that happens when you're actually conversing with it for a long time because it's
Mhm.
not a human partner.
It's really not. There was actually a study done on essentially the perceived friendliness of the AI and its level of authenticity. And one of the most interesting things about that one, though, is that people actually perceived a friendlier AI that agrees with you as more fake. Whereas, or as a cold, less friendly AI that agrees with you is perceived as being more sincere or authentic. It feels like it would be the inverse. It's like, well, do we need to make our AI more friendly so that it can disagree with people and so that they get more suspicious when it starts agreeing with them too
Mm-hmm.
much. So that was an interesting little nuance in the context of like, well, how do we solve this problem in terms of, actually preventing AI from constantly reaffirming people's incorrect worldviews and kind of sending them down these like psychosis rabbit holes. So I think that like you had more information on this one as far as like what actually was happening at least on OpenAI with ChatGPT
Yeah, so
for this
in
one.
April, OpenAI rolled out an update to their 4.0 model, which was the main one that is used in ChatGPT, that made it extra sycophantic, which everyone noticed immediately and complained about it to the extent that they did roll it back like within the week. And we're like, we'll monitor this better in the future because that's one of those things where this was not an intended thing. It was a side effect of trying to improve other parts of the model,
Mhm.
which is an interesting thing about trying to do with anything with LLMs is that as you try and like, tune one knob, the whole thing is a big, just giant snarled mass of spaghetti. So it'll pull on a bunch of other stuff and make other things happen that you don't really understand.
Yeah.
So they don't really understand it. And one of the things that they did also was, I think, hire on someone as their sort of mental health
Mm.
advisor to help them consider these issues more because they will at least express they are very concerned about this and want to make sure that it's something that they're thinking about.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, they did launch 5 a couple weeks ago
Mhm.
finally, and people have noticed that 5 is less friendly at least. I don't know if it's less sycophantic than original 4.0. I don't know if people measured that, but it was
Mhm.
definitely people noticed it was less friendly and warm, and they did not like that fact, and they did not like the fact that they just got rid of all previous models because OpenAI had a whole suite of them before. There was 4.0, there was O1, there was O3, there was O3 Mini, there was O4 Preview, and etc. And they were like,
Mhm.
that's all getting really complicated. We'll just get rid of all of it and give you 5, and it will decide what the best thing to do is when you talk to it. And people were like, I don't think that's the best way to do that. I would like to be able to pick my model.
Yeah.
So that was where my comment went is like, we had this article that was like, they had to bring back their nice model because everyone wanted the nice one. And it's like, well, maybe a little bit. Some of that
Mhm.
was probably that, but also it was just a bad idea to immediately deprecate every single one of all of their other models with no warning.
Yeah. Things are always nuanced. The nuance that gets lost in making like a headline or like, a tight little clip of consumable media for people.
Yeah, and the model versioning thing is interesting. In general, how do we deal with this going forward perspective? Because as a person who's building a tool for doing like manufacturing process development using Claude APIs, I had Claude 3.5 in there for a while, and I got it all tuned, and it would do Q&A with you with like nice brief questions that would give you suggestions for, and you could pick them. And then they upgraded to 3.7, and if I just plug 3.7 into the same system, suddenly it's giving me three paragraphs of text in every response, and it's like it's not working right anymore. And it's like, what is right? Like, there's no way to define what right is exactly in this scenario, but I've had it before and it's not doing it now. So give me the old one back, or I had to fix it. Like, so that's the kind of the level of that that there is.
Yeah. No, it's complicated. It'll be interesting to see actual studies on the prevalence of this and the methodology of it kind of actually coming out into like academic spaces, and especially coming from reputable institutions like Stanford and stuff like that. How is that going to, influence the conversation and like the direction that some of these companies are taking in how they're
And I
handling
know
this?
on the technical side, some of the things that I've seen discussions of it are kind of interesting is figuring out how to get these models to at least know when to stage an intervention, like
Yeah.
be able to identify when something is going swiftly downhill and do something about it. If it starts looking dangerous or too weird, like have some fail-safe in there that is just like, maybe you should stop now.
Yeah.
Or some more psychologically sound way than just continuing to encourage it the whole time.
Exactly.
And what does that look like, and what kind of guardrails does that involve?
Yeah. Only time will tell.
Yeah.
I think that kind of wraps us up
Yes.
for today.
Yes. But yes, until next time, this has been a podcast. I
It
hope
has
you
been
enjoyed
a
it.
podcast.
I hope you enjoyed it. We'll have more topics for you next time.
Yeah.